sisters say that he has a problem with authority. My approach in these cases is to sometimes meet aggression with aggression and sometimes back off. You just have to feel out the type of aggression that they have. Hello, David. I know we only have a few minutes, so we're going to go directly into this conversation, okay?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about your criminal past. When was it that you started getting in trouble with the law?
I had like some stealing issues in like kindergarten.
So when was it that you got your first arrest?
I was around 7.
So was it a thrill for you to be in trouble with the law?
I don't know how to term it like that, but it wasn't from being, criminal minded, so to speak. It was just a combination of being left alone, not having a structured environment, bad judgment, lack of supervision,
Let's talk about that, David, because the reason why you were arrested in the first place was because of criminal activities.
Well, you're terming it as criminal activity, and once again...
Well, that's what it is when you steal something, David.
Well, no, it actually is not. A child is a child. That's the reason why we call children that get in trouble delinquents and not criminals.
But David, you knew that you shouldn't take something that didn't belong to you. Am I correct?
To a degree.
Then in essence, wait a minute. Then in essence, you knew right from wrong.
Everybody knows it to some degree. I mean, you start learning that when you're a little kid. But
Exactly. That's the only point that I want to get over to you. Now let's get back to our conversation. Back in '91, you ran away from a juvenile facility. Why did you escape from that facility?
But I was being bullied in there a little bit by inmates and by the staff.
So at the time of the fire, you were on the run.
Yes.
To talk to 3 guys who know exactly what happened the night of the murder, because they were there. This is going to be a tough interview, but I need for them to tell me whether David is innocent or if he's right where he belongs. Did you all know each other growing up?
Yep. Back then, we used to run the neighborhood.
We'd wait until 10, then go out and run the streets. We were troublemakers. Breaking into cars, breaking into abandoned houses. Most time it was just, hey, let's see how long we can run around without getting caught.
We was definitely out there doing stuff we wasn't supposed to do. But we wasn't out catching stuff on fire and murdering people.
Let's talk about the night of the fire. What happened?
That evening, we all got gathered up and left, and we were just going down there to Scooter's house to get some Nintendo tape. And we could see a large plume of smoke real high in the air, so we all took off and ran up to the house.
How old were each of you the night that the fire happened?
I was 12.
12?
I was 16.
12. I just remember vividly us walking down the middle of the street like we owned it, and seeing a flame shoot in the window of this house. Scott and David led the pack far as going to the house.
Why is it your instinct to run towards this house? How do you even know there's anyone in there?
It's just... that's hard to explain. Except for the fact that we wanted to help, I guess.
Even as troubled as I was, I always felt like, helping people. And my main concern was, if somebody's in there, they need to get out.
Tell me what happened when you got to the house.
And I tried to look in the windows. I couldn't see anything, so I bust a couple of front windows out and let some smoke out. Didn't help any. And so I went around to the front door. There was a lady that was already there. I believe she said she called 911 already.
Okay.
I kicked in the living room door. And I was calling in there for the lady that we knew lived there. She just kept saying, my kid, and she wouldn't come to the door. I just started walking in the living room a little bit, like a couple paces, and something in the kitchen exploded. So I came back out of there onto the porch, but we kept calling her. Eventually, she made it to the front door.
Did you guys think maybe somebody intentionally lit a fire at this house?
What I was thinking at the time was that she had passed out with a cigarette or something. I just remember when the fire department got there, we had to back up behind fire trucks and everything.
I remember seeing a girl get wheeled out. We was shaking. I was shaking them. Reality starts to set in like, hey, this is a very serious situation.
Why do you think all these kids pointed the finger at you?
The detective used mental intimidation.
Hang on a second. The question I asked you is, why do you think all of your co-defendants pointed the finger at you? Not what the police did.
I answered the question, and my answer is because of what the police did. There is no other answer of why the kids would point the finger at me for something that neither me nor they had anything to do with. They were coerced.
How did the police interrogation go with you guys?
It was pretty intimidating in a little small room, yelling at me. You know, we know you did this.
It was scary. I'm like, I'm going to tell them what they want to hear so I can go home.
Now, Justin and Scott, I understand you guys both signed written statements.
Yeah. But that story right there was fed to me.
They said, we want you to sign this. We know this happened, this happened. You just write that in your own words.
I've never been in that situation before. I'm 12 years old. Sounds amazing, don't it?
You guys all got convicted of being accessories to this crime. How much time did you do?
About 7.5, 8 years.
It was about 7 years, 7.5 years. About 4.5, 5 years.
Now, Justin, you're the only one here who testified against David. How did that feel?
I mean, at that time, I didn't really feel nothing. I mean, we was just caught up in the lie.
But in trial, the defense attorney asked you, why now are you saying still that David did this? And your response is, I've had a lot of time to think about it, and I want to tell the truth.
At that point, even I was still rolling with the story.
You need to stick with the story.
I wish I could have been the man I am now at 12 years old. Because I do feel very bad for the decisions that was made back then.
Let me just say this, Dave. You just don't seem like the type of person that would be interested in running inside of a fire and trying to save someone.
I don't know what to tell you if that's what you think. I was always good-hearted. I don't like to hurt anybody or anything, I mean, I feel like I did something good, and I ended up being punished.
I'm going to ask you point blank, did you start that fire?
Didn't have anything to do with that fire. Wasn't there, don't know about it, don't even know if a crime happened.
If I were to say I think that he did it, what would you tell me?
You're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong.
You're completely wrong. There's really no reason to lie about it. We did the time. I gotta tell you this. If David did it, my time wouldn't have been so bad. We did it. It'd have made it that much easier. After all the stuff they put me through. I really feel bad that he's still in it. For something he didn't do.
Chris and I were both moved hearing about your family. You guys have been through a lot, and we know that you won't be at peace until you're reunited with your brother.
So you gave us 5 leads that you believe would prove David's innocence. We followed up on all of those leads, and here are the results of our investigation.
One of your leads was that your brother had absolutely no motive to murder Amanda Simpson. You both admit that he was a problem kid, petty thief. But you both insist he was never violent. So I took all of David's psychological evaluations to an independent forensic psychologist. His conclusion was that your brother had a darker past than you let on. In his evaluations, David admitted to being violent against cats when he was a little boy. And he also admitted to assaults. He even admitted to starting fires. But my biggest concern is that the psychological evaluations concluded that David has an alarming lack of empathy for people. So the idea that your brother would rush into a burning building to save people, it just didn't fit. So unfortunately, this lead will not help you.
It makes me sad. It was always my baby. I can't picture him hurting somebody.
Your next lead was that the prosecution's expert used junk science to prove that this fire was started by arson. So I met 2 independent fire experts, and they're tops in their field. They looked over the photos. They also read the fire reports. They concluded that the fire did start in the kitchen. But as to how the fire started, whether an accelerant was used, they said that there was not enough evidence. They couldn't tell whether or not it was an accident or if it was an arson. They would have listed it as undetermined. So overall, this lead does help.
Amazing.
Your next lead was that you felt that David did not get a fair trial. You said that there was so much media attention surrounding the case that the jury had to have been biased. That really concerns me. So I managed to track down one of the jurors. He insists that he hadn't heard anything about this crime before he got picked to be on the jury. I did believe him. What I did pick up on, though, were other biases. I asked him, what did he think when he watched David during the trial?
It just appeared that he had no compassion.
Did that really stand out to you, his demeanor?
We had no other way to determine what kind of person he was other than what we observed during the trial.
So you can see there is some bias there. The jury should be basing their decision on testimony, not on observing the accused in court. But does this help get David a new trial because there may have been this bias? No.
It's not fair. Life's not fair. Don't I know that?
So let's move on to your next lead. You told us that there was a key witness in this case that actually backs David's story. So I did some digging and I actually found this woman. She told me on the night of April 28, 1991, as she walked through the neighborhood, she sees 3 adult males carrying a microwave. She says that they were definitely men and not teenagers. About 15 to 20 minutes later, she sees the fire. She runs to the scene. And that's when she sees David and some of his friends running to the fire also. She said those kids wanted to help. She told her story to police. She didn't think that the police actually took her too serious. And in my opinion, the police should have taken her statement much more serious than what they did. So overall, this is actually a good lead.
That's a good thing. Just a little bit of hope.
So your last lead is probably the most critical. David is in prison today because 3 of the kids that he was with that night testified against him in trial. You told us that they were coerced by police, and since then, that they've recanted their stories. We contacted the police, but they didn't want to talk to us. So I found 3 of David's co-defendants. And after years of silence, they decided to talk. One of the guys I talked to, Justin, he testified against your brother. His testimony was very damaging. At trial, he said that David yelled, "F them, let them burn," before lighting the home on fire. But now he says that was all a lie. Now, it's important to note, we only have his word for all of this. And the other 2 people who testified against your brother, keep in mind they have not recanted. But if what Justin says is true, the case against David suddenly gets a lot weaker.
Finally, maybe somebody brave enough to put the truth out there. Just do the right thing.
Justin's testimony was the most damaging, and he does regret it. He wishes that at 12 years old, he knew better.
He couldn't. Man, we don't blame any of them for any of that.
As an investigator who's worked homicide cases that involve teenagers and kids, you don't talk to a 12-year-old child without a legal guardian, especially not about a murder. As law enforcement officers, we still have guidelines and rules that we need to abide by. That's the reason why I take that oath so seriously. You don't do it. Let's put ourselves in the jury's shoes, and let's consider this case for a guilty vote. On the night of April 28th, 1991, your brother, on the run from the law, heads out with 6 of his friends, and they're looking for trouble. So maybe they decide to go burglarize the place, just to see what they can find. That wouldn't be unusual. But maybe they get in there, and they realize that Judy and Amanda are there. These are possible witnesses. So maybe David does exactly what his friend said he did that night. Pour gasoline all over the floor, scream, "Let it burn," and then lit it on fire.
Now, let's consider the case for a not guilty vote. There's no physical evidence, just the word of 3 teenagers. And now one of them is recanting. It's hard to imagine that walking down the street that night, 15-year-old David felt the need to suddenly be a good Samaritan. But maybe he saw the flames, heard the cries, and for the first time in his life, he decided to put the needs of someone else before his own. So maybe he did something good, and he got punished for it, and he's paying for it to this day.
Fatima and I can't sit here in front of you and say that we completely believe either one of these scenarios. We just don't have enough information. So here's what we're willing to do. We're going to hire you an investigator.
Couldn't ask for anything more.
Amazing.
But you've got to have some realistic expectations here. You may not like what he finds.
I can take that.
Also, I want to make it clear, we're not doing this for your brother. We're doing this for that 12-year-old little girl, Amanda Simpson. She was found in her closet, hiding. Someone had scared her so much, she didn't even bother jumping out the window to safety. If David did this, he doesn't deserve a second chance. This is a particularly cruel crime.
I agree. And if he did it, then he's where he should be.
But if he didn't, and Amanda's killer is still out there, then her family deserves answers.
Absolutely.
This has been an emotionally tolling week for us because it's kids. And there's a little girl gone. And all these kids somehow They're wrapped up in this. So the search for truth it's due. And you're an inspiration to families out there to never give up.
I think I speak for both of us. We will be forever grateful for this. It has been a nerve-wracking journey, for sure. But I am honestly so grateful for just